This is Jay Sekulow. The judge is demanding answers about grand juries in Trump's document case.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jay Sekulow.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. We've got a lot to talk about. New whistleblower case that we're going to get into. We talked a little bit about that on Friday, but there's also been a development in the Trump document case down in Mar-a-Lago, and that is Judge Cannon has demanded an explanation of, quote, I'm reading from the order here, the legal propriety of using an out-of-district grand jury proceeding to continue to investigate the documents case, and also she struck two of the prosecutor's sealed filings. Now, the interesting aspect of this is there's apparently the grand jury's continuing to investigate. The problem is you've got a grand jury from another jurisdiction doing the investigation, which does raise a proprietary question, meaning, is that even legal to do? I think it's highly questionable that this could be an approach that could be utilized here, Jordan.
Yeah, I think when you honestly look at this, it seems like a classic Jack Smith a move, is that we're going to file these charges, but we'll go to a different grand jury in a different location, and we'll put this grand jury forward, and we're going to put new charges there. Remember, in the case in Florida, they've already added additional charges here. So they're looking at those additional charges, and the question is, are there more to come? And then you kind of apply that to what happened in Washington, D.C., where you have those 6 unnamed co-conspirators. Well, where will their grand juries be? So, I mean, I think that the whole basis of this is that this is not a normal case from the beginning because it involves the president of the United States, a former president of the United States. But second, that the Department of Justice, like they did in the Hunter Biden situation by not following normal procedures, isn't following normal procedures here when it relates to Donald Trump.
You know, what's interesting about all of this, and we take your calls at 1-800-684-3110, 800-684-3110, is the procedural issues have been gumming up the work, so to speak. If you look at it from the context, as Jordan just said, one is, of course, in the Hunter Biden case, the judge rejects the plea agreement because she says, I don't have the authority to determine this kind of violation. That's something prosecutors would have to bring to me. I don't initiate those proceedings. That's not what a judge does. And here the judge is saying on the Mar-a-Lago case involving President Trump, hey, wait a minute. You got an out-of-state grand jury conducting the investigation here. How could that possibly be right? And I got to tell you, in both of these cases, whether it's Biden or Trump, you better be doing it by the book. Because if you don't do it by the book, it sure looks worse than political. It looks like there's something amiss here. And that's the problem with all of this, Jordan.
Yeah, that's, I think, exactly what the American people are so upset about is it seems like, Hunter Biden gets a slap on the wrist. The judge says, whoa, 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 this might get full immunity. I am not the enforcer here. But still, what most media is reporting is that they expect him to ultimately get that plea deal, that will all be settled. When it comes to Donald Trump, he gets charged, and then they keep adding additional charges in different jurisdictions. And it's like, how many different cases from Jack Smith's already in 2 different court systems, D.C. and Florida. He's adding charges in Florida. We believe that he might be trying to add charges in D.C. That's why he has those 6 unnamed co-conspirators. And then, of course, you've got what's going on in New York. And then what we expect to happen out of Fulton County in Georgia. That this was not last week was not the last time we expect to see the Donald Trump being arraigned, but we expect it to happen at least one more time.
Yeah, they're talking about, it looks like now it's going to be next week, the week of April, August 14th, looks like on that one. We also announced that we have a brand new whistleblower, another one. We announced that on Friday a little bit. We're going to get into it more today. This is our second whistleblower case, which is why your support of our work for the ACLJ's Life and Liberty Drive is absolutely critical. Your donations allowed us to take on another one. Because of your support, we can take on the second case for whistleblower. And let me tell you this, our lawyer's already been on the phone with a third whistleblower. You want accountability in government, we're going to get it. This is where you come in. Remember, through our ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, every dollar you give will be doubled. You're giving fuel to these fights. We can't protect our constitutional republic without you. You're part of the team on this. We've heard you, we've read your comments, and we're taking action. Go to aclj.org, support that today. You'll also be getting an email about it. You can support there as well.
The ACLJ has a long and distinguished history in fighting for liberty.
At the ACLJ, this is our number one issue. It's why we're founded.
It started with Jews for Jesus and their ability to engage in evangelism. Then it became whether students in high school could start Bible studies and Christian fellowship organizations and events like See You at the Pole. That kind of set us up as the religious liberty team.
Conservative groups were targeted by the IRS.
Remember when we went after the IRS? We broke them after 3 years of pulverizing them in court.
The Party of Tolerance just viciously attacked two peaceful pro-life advocates.
Not of a pedestrian who attacked him, but a pro-abortion extremist.
A former U.S. Navy chief and part-time employee was forced to resign his position because he wouldn't remove bumper stickers from his personal vehicle that were supportive of President Trump. We will be representing FBI Special Agent Garrett O'Boyle. He was the FBI agent who blew the whistle on the FBI targeting conservatives. And what did the FBI do to him? Suspended him without pay.
Put this guy and his family in a homeless situation.
They were thrown out for wearing hats that had a pro-life message on them.
Legal action is imminent. We've already put them on notice.
We represent the parents and a 15-year-old female student who was forced to perform a profanity-laced, sexually explicit, obscene monologue as a graded assignment.
If you don't want me to read it to you, what was that like for my 15-year-old daughter?
The responsibility of the ACLJ is to make Americans aware of attacks on our freedom. We fight for the liberties and freedoms that make this country great. Join us in our Life and Liberty Drive to stand with us in the fight.
You're just joining us, folks. I mean, another order out of Judge Cannon, and this time, this is in the Mar-a-Lago case, and this time, an out-of-state grand jury. I'm shaking my head here. I can't even believe this. An out-of-state grand jury investigating another jurisdiction's case where there's already been charges. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. And that's why obviously the lawyers are reacting on this. They have to. This is absurd. And it's not the way it's supposed to be done in federal court in a criminal case. Now, having said that, we just announced at the ACLJ with our friends from Empower Oversight that we've taken on our second whistleblower client after the FBI unconstitutionally retaliated against Marcus Allen, FBI staff operations specialist, who, by the way, was the employee of the year for the FBI's office in Charlotte. Think about that for a moment. Let me go right to Tristan first. Tristan, I know you're getting inundated, and we're glad we're able to partner with you on this. Empower's done a great job on the Hill, too. And now we've got a team that's working together, and this is a multi-client matter now and continuing to increase. Marcus's case is interesting because here's a guy that just was literally doing what he was supposed to do, and he ends up getting his security clearance pulled.
Yeah, exactly. It's really outrageous. And again, it was only 2019 that he was the employee of the year, so it wasn't long ago at all. And just as he spoke up, his whole job is to keep the people in his office. He's on a joint terrorism task force. His whole duties were to keep them apprised of things that could impact their investigations. And so he noted, the various narratives that were out there about folks who were present on January 6th. And was keeping them apprised of that. But then when he spoke up about Director Wray possibly failing to provide a complete picture to Congress, that's when the hammer came down, and that's when they suspended his clearance, and he's been without pay for a year and a half since.
Let me ask you this, okay? We've got, I know my colleague Jane Raskin was on the phone with Marcus and a number of other lawyers. You all were on as well. The pattern here is pretty clear. But I want people to understand from your perspective, because you're getting a lot of, we're partnering with you on this, but you've already had a number of these on Capitol Hill. This situation isn't decreasing, Tristan, it's increasing.
Yeah, that's right. And what's scary about the FBI, and this is part of what the Weaponization Committee has looked at, is that you have a situation where maybe approximately half or more of its workforce have differing political opinions. And the FBI seems to be just driving out anyone that again, that there were folks that even if they were not inside the Capitol on January 6th, again, people who are supporters of President Trump who've been questioned or driven out. You have people who refused to get the COVID vaccine who've been questioned or driven out. And you have rumblings from the top, from the Deputy Director, Paula Bate, saying anyone that doesn't agree with our view of things, there's no room for you here in the agency. And that's simply not appropriate for an agency that's run by our tax dollars.
I wanted to go to Tristan on this and then Jordan as well. Tristan, as you're viewing this, both of you and Jason have a lot of, you and Tristan have a lot of experience. So I want to go to Jason on this one, actually. Jason, you've been on the Hill a long time. You've been doing this work. The trend line, as I was just talking to Tristan here, seems to be on a really high upward trajectory. I mean, I know we had a conference call on Friday after we got Marcus Allen that we're working with now. There was a third whistleblower, another agency here. The trend line seems to be going nothing but up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we, the incident that Tristan was just talking about Paula Bate, we had an anonymous whistleblower a couple weeks ago who we filed an anonymous affidavit on that talked about hearing the deputy director of the FBI on a nationwide conference call, hundreds of other people. It's one of the reasons the person was willing to come forward because, lots of people could corroborate this. And we gave his affidavit to the inspector general and to the folks on the Hill, where the deputy director of the FBI basically said, if you're not on board, then you need to get out. Have people call me. I will straighten them out. It was, on all January 6th investigations. And so it was a really, really intimidating sort of a threat that was said out loud. I'm sure that multiple people who are in the command and chain of command of multiple of our clients heard that and took that direction from the top. Okay, we're supposed to get rid of the people who aren't on board. What's interesting about this, Jordan, I think this is important. The agent was dealing with, Marcus Allen was dealing with open source information. The same thing's true with other agents saying, look, there were people that invaded the Capitol. That's one thing, and you prosecute those. But you got to be careful about, people that were engaged in First Amendment activities. Then there was a question about whether the FBI had infiltrated Proud Boys and some of these other groups. Director Wray gave an answer that was not correct. These FBI agents knew it was not correct. It was sending out the wrong signal. So they are being literally thrown out. Security clearance is suspended. Pay stops. And their crime is they told the truth as to what was going on.
What I think is important here, we heard it from Garrett O'Boyle in that interview we did with him last week, and I think it's so important. If people missed that interview on Friday, what he said was, he had appreciated, of course, working with Tristan and the team at Empower. But when Empower and ACLJ got together through the American Center for Law and Justice and combined forces, he kind of said, that hearing when I was asked, what would I tell people who were thinking about doing this? And he said, pray hard and probably just go through me. Don't put yourself or your family through this. He kind of said, well, now that the ACLJ's here working alongside Empower, and he knows that we've got the resources to fight back against the federal government, he's kind of switched and said, you know what? I want to start encouraging. I think we could open the floodgates, was the exact word he used, open the floodgates of whistleblowers coming out of these executive agencies to blow the whistle and tell the truth about the weaponization of our federal government against the American people. And specifically, it seems like their latest target has been anyone related to conservative politics, whether it's Republican politics, pro-life politics, just being conservative in general, or even being a religious person, as we saw the attacks and focuses on the Catholic Church. So he's actually kind of made a 180 and said, with the ACLJ behind us, we could get forward a lot more of these whistleblowers. I also want to say that Empower's done an unbelievable job here. And to Tristan and Jason, I need to say this. You guys got in this early. You've been aggressive. You've been handling these cases right. Tristan, we've got more to talk about. But for people that want to, we've got your website up on our screen right now for those that are watching our broadcast. What's the best place for people to contact you, but also to support your work?
So that website, empoweroversight.org, is the best way to reach out. There has the information there to email us or reach out to us. The best way to support us is actually through a new website we set up, defendwhistleblowers.com. And that goes to IRS whistleblowers like Gary Shapley, the case agent in the Hunter Biden investigation, and other law enforcement whistleblowers who we're representing, who are just speaking up about the truth and are being, hounded as whistleblowers for doing so.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment. I think it's important for people to understand here. We're looking at litigation angles. We've got one case that next step is federal court of appeals. We're working on that with Empower right now, and that's an important case. You've got the Marcus Allen case, which is it's still in the administrative review, but you've got Tristan, other cases coming in the door. Let people know kind of quickly here what happens when someone calls.
Absolutely. So generally, we email is the best way to contact us, and that's either through normal email or Proton email, which is encrypted. But we have a team that goes through and reviews those, tries to make sure that it identifies the issues where we might be able to have an impact, and then those come to our lawyers to be able to, again, review and see which ones we can make a difference in. Lots of situations there's not a clear pathway to review, but where there are whistleblower disclosures and where there's whistleblower retaliation, that's really where our specialty is because of all of our work on the Hill. And so we go through those and reach back out to people as quickly as we can to find out more about their stories.
Jason, the fact is we're already seeing impact from all of this as we move forward now together on these cases. We're already seeing impact. I mean, the government knows that this is serious business now, and they've got a fight on their hands.
Yeah, we have a lot of confidence that we're going to get positive results out of Marcus's case from the Inspector General, and that's just going to be priceless to have the independent Inspector General come out and find the facts. We're very confident they're going to find the facts in our favor because the retaliation against him was just unconscionable. But I mean, with regard to people reaching out to us, it's really important for folks to talk to us as early as possible, because what we can really help them do, we can have the most impact and the most help by counseling them before they've made a protected disclosure. And we can make sure that they do it in the right way and do it in a way that's most powerful and then we can try to get folks on the Hill and in the IG community to make sure they follow up.
All right, Jason and Tristan, we appreciate that so much. Empowered Oversight does a great job. Glad to be partnering with them, and keep up the great work. And Jordan, it's important for people to understand here that the two cases we're involved with Empower, one is with the Inspector General right now, so that's where that one is. The other one is going to federal court. The notice of that appeal is going to be filed this month.
The O'Boyle case. So again, you've got Marcus Allen going through the appeals process and the Inspector General, and we talked about Marcus Allen, who just forwarded information along post January 6th, said, hey, we need to be careful as we investigate this wrongdoing. He never made any statements saying it wasn't wrongdoing what happened on January 6th, just said, let's be careful. So that's at the administrative stage, but O'Boyle is ready for federal court. We want you to be part of this. We want you to be part of their defense. So join the ACLJ Life and Liberty Initiative right now. You do that by going to aclj.org. That's aclj.org. Join the ACLJ Life and Liberty Initiative. And what you are doing is directly fighting side by side with these whistleblowers. That's where your resources are going. And the more resources that come in, the more whistleblowers we get to represent.
Very good.
We'll be right back.
All right, we're going to stay live here for our audiences that are watching on social media because there are a lot of you watching. Here's what I need you to do. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble, share this feed with your friends. Hit subscribe, first of all. But we've got thousands and thousands of you on our social media sites right now, and we need you to just share this with your friends. Now, look. Coming up, we're going to get into this issue, one in Ohio on the life issue, where the ACLJ's front and center on that as well. So we've got Bernie Moreno joining us there. Very important for you to hear from him because this is going to be a big deal. It is a big deal in Ohio. And Jordan, ACLJ action is on top of this one. So we're kind of shifting here for a moment, but this shows you the scope and nature of the work.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so while we have the whistleblowers going on and those cases going on, we've got ACLJ Action, our team in Washington, D.C., very much engaged in this Ohio battle, which is very important. It's about, we'll explain it when we come back from the break. If you missed the interview with Ohio Secretary of State on Friday, about why it's so important. This Ohio 1 amendment, the final day to vote is tomorrow. So this is going to really set the stage for what the abortion industry, the anti-gun industry is going to be able to do. So many of corporate America treating the Ohio Constitution like a piece of legislation rather than a constitutional document itself because of such a low bar to amending the Constitution of that state, 50 plus 1, where in most states it's 60 plus 1 or even higher to amend the Constitution. So we'll get into all of that as well. It does involve abortion, but it really involves every single issue you can think of. It's a way for the left to subvert a conservative Ohio state legislature and governor and get past their legislation through constitutional amendment by only needed 50 plus 1. So we'll talk about that when we come back.
Very good. All right, very good. Thanks for coming back to the broadcast, everyone. We were talking to our friends on our social media feeds during the commercial break. I'm going to update our radio folks, too. We're going to be joined in a minute by Bernie Moreno. He is a candidate for U.S. Senate, but he's also talking about this Ohio Issue 1. ACLJ action is directly involved in that. And let me say this. There is a troubling development in Florida in the case involving the former president as it relates to the grand jury work. And the Judge Cannon, asked the right question, which is, can an out-of-state grand jury do an investigation of a grand jury in another district? The answer to that should be no. But apparently that's not the case. That's what Jack Smith has going on here. Later in this week, I'm going to be able to tie in with you the IRS targeting cases that we had in 2013 that then raised their head again last year, even though we won and got this big judgment and all these changes in the IRS, and Jack Smith. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. I'm sure we're going to do that program probably midweek. Shows the connection of all of that. We are also taking your calls. I've opened the phone lines at 1-800-684-3110, whether it's the whistleblowers that need protection. Do you want us to stand with them? Whether it's a situation for the former president and the trials there or the Hunter Biden matter, 1-800-684-3110. And I will tell you this. I am convinced, Jordan, that as we now take Marcus Allen's case, and we have already interviewed a third whistleblower from another agency, Department of Homeland Security, that this goes to other issues, that we have just hit the tip of the iceberg. But because of the support that we're getting in our Life and Liberty Drive, we're now seeing that we can take more and more of these cases.
Also about that is what you just said, Des, because of the support we're getting through the ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, we were kind of able to open up the floodgates to these whistleblowers and to these other smaller organizations that represent them and say, we want to come up and stand beside you and fight this battle with you. And our supporters want to fight this battle with you. So when you're part of the ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive now, your support is making sure we can continue to accept additional clients like Garrett O'Boyle, like Marcus Allen, to add to the team. We do have now joining us Bernie Moreno from Ohio, a U.S. Senate candidate there. And Bernie, let me go to you first. There's a very important vote tomorrow in Ohio on a ballot initiative, U.S. 1, which would change the Constitution in Ohio. Tell people about that.
So thank you for having me. It's a really important election here because what we have, our Constitution is just too easy to change. It requires a simple majority of 50% plus 1. And when you factor it all out, out-of-state interests can pour money into Ohio, and they have in the past, and put things that they can't get done legislatively into our Constitution. So what we're asking the voters to do is to raise the thresholds from a very simple majority to just a regular majority of 60%, so that you have broad consensus around issues that really matter. We're very, very optimistic that this will pass tomorrow, but obviously it's all going to hinge on turnout.
Bernie, I wanted to ask you this. You know, if you got legislation and it's 50 plus 1, that makes sense. People get that. But when you're talking about amending a constitution, you're really turning the constitutional amendment process into just another legislative referendum, which is not the design that you had in Ohio originally. I mean, that was not the plan, and certainly not the way it should go forward.
Absolutely. I mean, the Constitution should be the base foundational document for the state. It's not intended to be a policy document. This Constitution lived well before any of us were alive, will live long after we're alive. So we got to protect it from the whims of the day. And as you know, quite honestly, the unbridled creativity of the left for ridiculously bad ideas is something that we could never have ever have imagined. So what this law does, it's just good government measure. 60% is a majority. It's not a super majority, but it's not a simple majority. And I'm very confident that the people in Ohio are going to understand that. We'll get this thing passed.
I got to read this, Jordan, and I want Bernie to respond to this. Look at the outside groups in some of this. $14.8 million has been raised. $13.5 million came in from organizations that are left of center. You've got the 1630 Project did $2.5 million. $2 million from the Ohio Education Association. $1 million from the ACLU. $1.85 million from the Tides Foundation. They received $5.9 million from the District of Columbia. $4.3 from California, $701,000 from Virginia, $672,000 donors from New York. I mean, so you've got this huge, Bernie, outside money coming in big numbers, both individuals and these groups.
So basically what happens is they saw a loophole where what they can't get done legislatively, because let's be honest, Ohio is a conservative red state. That we know that we have representatives in Columbus from the state and the House where we have a supermajority. They can't get their crazy radical agenda through the normal channel. We don't have any statewide electeds except for the person I'm going to take down, which is Sherrod Brown as our United States Senator, but will end his career next year. And so what they're trying to do is do an end run around the voters and be able to modify their bad ideas in our Constitution. We can't allow them to do that.
Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's important here, Bernie, is exactly what you said, which is Ohio being, this is important for everybody who lives in like a red state where they've got a conservative legislature, conservative governor. They know how difficult it is for the left to get anything through. If they start utilizing these processes and say, well, but in this state, we only need 50%, we can run a kind of a campaign of disinformation, if you will. Don't love using the term, but they certainly do those kind of campaigns and scare people into voting for or against an amendment. We can, in fact, subvert the legislative process completely and alter the state's constitution, whether it's on abortion, whether it's on the Second Amendment, whether it's on basic freedoms and liberties. I mean, the issues, taxes, the issues go on and on and on.
In fact, the mayor of Cleveland said the quiet part out loud. He said we have to vote no on issue 1 because we have to put common sense gun laws in. You know what that means, right? So that's exactly their intent. But again, I can't even begin to believe what they have in mind. 5 years ago, would we have been talking about men playing in women's sports? Would we have been talking about mutilating children? Would we be talking about the kinds of ridiculous policies that they're talking about? I don't think so. You know, we've passed some good conservative legislation in Ohio. We require a valid photo ID now. They want to undo that. So there's just a lot of things that we have to do. And the reality is we live in a representative democracy. We don't live in the chaos of a broad, direct democracy in which you change the foundational document with a very simple majority.
We appreciate you coming on, appreciate the work that you all are doing. And again, that big vote tomorrow in Ohio, we encourage people to support what is an important initiative. Thanks, Bernie. Thanks for being with us. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. We're only going to be gone for a minute, and then we're going to be right back. But let me tell you what we need you to do. We are in our Life and Liberty Drive. We are in week 2 of the Life and Liberty Drive. We've talked about the chokehold that the deep states had on our constitutional framework. My gosh, whether it's the stuff that's going on against Trump, whether it's the whistleblowers that we're dealing with, whether it's this amendment to change the Constitution so that you can't just change the Constitution in a whim in Ohio. The ACLJ is involved in all that. And we've just taken on Marcus Allen, another FBI whistleblower who was the Employee of the Year for his field office in Charlotte and is now suspended without pay, security clearance suspended, life put on hold because of what? Because he told the truth. That's where you come in, folks. We're in our Life and Liberty Drive. Every dollar you give us will be doubled. This is your moment to help us. Because of your great support last week, we're able to take on another whistleblower. We've already started that conversation with the third one, ACLJ.org.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
We are not promised to be the greatest country in the history of the world forever. Ronald Reagan warned us, you cannot just sit back and let someone else do the work. You can't hope that someone else is going to fight for you. You have to get involved. You know, many great civilizations have lasted roughly 250 years, not because of war, not because of energy or water issues, but because of infighting. And I fear what's happening to our country right now is that we're being ripped apart. And there are a myriad of ways where you can raise your voice. Through the ACLJ, we try to make it easy. Get involved. Go to aclj.org.
If you're unwilling to meet this challenge, then you'd better start preparing, deciding what you'll tell your children it was that you found more important than freedom. They'll want to know.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jay Sekulow.
Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. We started this at the beginning of the show, and if you're catching this in the second half hour, maybe you're catching us tape delayed. I got to point this out. Judge Cannon's the judge that's handling the Trump case that the government brought, Jack Smith's office, the special counsel brought on the Mar-a-Lago documents case. And I'm going to give you later in the week a special broadcast that's going to tie in Jack Smith way back to 2013 and the IRS targeting scandal. And Jack Smith in the middle of that one. How do we know? We litigated that case, and we've got emails with Jack Smith's name on it and discussions. So we're going to tie all this together, folks. It's been a decade-long fight. Do you understand that? They've been trying to do this for a decade. Now they're doing it. But in the Mar-a-Lago case, and this is what's so interesting, Jordan, the judge has raised an issue, and she wants a response, a brief, on the legal propriety of using an out-of-district grand jury proceeding to continue to investigate or seek post-indictment hearings on matters pertinent to the instant indicted matter in that district. In other words, using an out-of-district grand jury to continue an investigation on a case not in their district, but in the district where the judge is.
Yeah, I mean, it seems fairly unheard of. And also, again, this kind of, when we talk about a two-tiered system of justice, that the Department of Justice thinks, oh, we can get away with acting however we want when it comes to coming after President Trump. We've already seen additional charges added in this case. We look at the D.C. charge, and you look there and you see these co-conspirators that are unnamed. Are there more charges coming there? Where's the grand jury sitting there? I mean, is there going to be a grand jury in Delaware that ends up adding charges to those? I mean, it just does not make sense. And that's so important. First of all, we think all these charges are just totally bogus. But at the end of the day, if you're going to prosecute a former president of the United States, you better be doing it, like you said, by the book. You shouldn't be trying new, novel approaches, especially to the grand jury system of all places. And that's exactly what it looks like Jack Smith is doing. And it's exactly what has gotten Jack Smith in trouble over the years in his legal career in the United States when he's gone after politicians. He won't use the normal kind of systems of justice that the Department of Justice provides. He always thinks he's got to come up with something novel and new. And in law, when you come up with novel and new approaches, oftentimes those are not accepted.
You know, let me tell you something. A lot of legal commentators saying, well, Jack Smith's indictment and out of Washington, the January 6th indictment, as it's called, are based on novel legal theories. I want you to stop and think about that for a moment. Novel legal theories. That means kind of untested, different, not used before, against a former president of the United States. I mean, I think about this for a moment. A novel legal theory against a former president. It shouldn't be a novel legal theory against any American, but against a former president of the United States, we think that's okay? But this is the nature of what's going on right now. And our phone lines are open for you. I want your reaction to this. I want your reaction to the supporting these whistleblowers. I want your reaction to what's going on down in Mar-a-Lago, all of that. 1-800-684-3110, 800-684-3110. And let me tell you this, folks. We are in week 2 of our Life and Liberty Drive, and we've got a lot more to talk about the rest of this week. We've got very good programming planned. You got an email today, and it starts with Biden's deep state is a chokehold on our constitutional republic. And I want you to think about that for a moment. President Biden's deep state has a chokehold on our constitutional republic. They're literally taking everything. This is a quote from an FBI agent. They've made us homeless. That's what Agent O'Boyle said. They have crushed our families. Your ACLJ is standing up to them because of you. You have joined us in this fight. We want you to become part of the fight. We are just days into the launch of this very exciting endeavor, our Life and Liberty Drive. Remember, through this drive, every dollar you donate will be doubled to defend the constitutional rights of these agents and others. You're giving fuel to these fights. We couldn't protect these constitutional fights without you, and we couldn't have added a possible third one. without you. Your support's having a direct impact on who we're able to represent. Go to aclj.org, support that Life and Liberty Drive today, or respond to the email that you've received this morning. Very important you do that at aclj.org. Back with your calls at 800-684-3110 in a moment.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things, just marked when they're born.
If you look back at the whole history of the abortion movement, it is tied in with Margaret Sanger, grounded in the perception that certain people are either unfit to live or they are unworthy of life.
Life has always been a top issue since our founding. Either the unborn child is a human being or they're not. The science clearly establishes that that unborn child is a person.
When you're fighting for life, when you're fighting for the life of the unborn, you're on the right side of history, you're on the right side of law.
The radical left has been relentless in trying to silence anyone who refuses to worship at the altar of abortion.
We're going to have to flood the coffers of abortion funds. We are not going back. Not ever.
You have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and the question of abortion has been returned to the states.
We celebrated this historic victory at the Supreme Court, but now it's time to put the hammer down and dig even deeper.
This is a fight that is worth fighting for, and it's an issue that is, in our mind, not negotiable. You don't negotiate on life.
We have to step up for the unborn. We've been given this unique opportunity. The battle has really just begun. This is your moment to get in the fight. Every tax-deductible gift will be doubled. Join the ACLJ in the fight to keep America free.
We have got a lot of people watching us on social media right now. I mean, tens of thousands. And we want to encourage you, if you're watching, first of all, subscribe to whatever platform you're using. And also share it with your friends. We've got a lot of people engaged. We've talked about the judge in the Mar-a-Lago case has said, hey, wait a minute, how can you have an out-of-district grand jury investigating this case, continuing to investigate it? She's asked for briefs on that. Big. The January 6th grand jury that Jack Smith got on, we'll be able to tell you by the end of the week. I'm going to tie in Jack Smith to the IRS targeting cases from a decade ago. That's how long these fights take. Then we've got another one today, and Jeff Valabon, the senior counsel for the ACLJ, just came back from our office in Jerusalem. So there's this whole issue going on right now where Democratic-led anti-Israel bill relying on research. They base the research on a group, Jeff, called Defense for Children International Palestine. Sounds very nice, except it's a recognized terror organization. You were just there. Who is this group?
Look, there is an international war against the existence of the state of Israel. And unfortunately, right now, the Democratic Party in Washington is piling on against Israel. There's 30 Democratic members joined in, making a case against Israel that Israel is violating all kinds of laws against children, but they're relying on evidence literally brought forth by a terrorist organization, by an organization that blows up children.
And I think we've totally lost Jeff. All right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do we have you back now, Jeff? Go ahead.
Okay. So I don't know what you heard before, but this Democratic bill,
this organization, that they're relying on has blown up children, which is unfortunately true.
Children, right? That's right. It's one of a number of organizations, which very nice sounding names, that are front groups for the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a Marxist terrorist group that its entire history is known for blowing up innocents, using innocents as human shields. And now the Democrats are relying on this terrorist organization to put a bill in condemning Israel.
The thing that is so shocking to me here, Jordan, is we have found out through our FOIA litigation, for instance, that $1 million of U.S. taxpayer dollars went to Mahmoud Abbas's son, the leader of the Palestinian Liberation, or PLO, whatever they call themselves, different, nicer names now. But we found that out in our litigation.
Yeah, we did. And in this situation, too, the United States, it's not just Israel, but the United States has designated this organization as a terror outfit. So you would say the kind of like shame on these 30 members of Congress who used an organization that the United States of America, that would include under the Biden administration, considers a terrorist organization, to use their research to put forward legislation on protecting Palestinian children. You'd think maybe there's a better source, but what we actually know, Dad and Jeff, I think, realizes this as well, is that when you go into that part of the world, unfortunately, most of the prominent organizations representing Palestinians are bad actors with ties to other bad actors, and that just hurts the Palestinian people because there's that less amount of people to legitimately have discussions and negotiations with, because we know those people that are good over there. They are the extreme minority who want to get to peace and want to work things out. When in fact, it's the major groups that these members of Congress will cite, even though the United States designate them a terrorist group.
Well, here, the Defense for Children International Palestine was designated in 2022 as a terrorist organization in Israel. Then the government said the group is controlled by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a militant organization that, by the way, has killed Americans and is a U.S. designated terror organization, Jeff. So this is like a double mark, a pox on their house, so to speak.
That's right. They've killed all kinds of innocents. Obviously, the most of them are Jews and Israelis, but they've killed people elsewhere as well. They're designated a terrorist organization, not just in the U.S. and in Israel, but in other countries as well. And yet, and this is the major problem, Jay, money keeps on flowing from organizations in the EU, from America, and now they're being mainstreamed by members of Congress. And it's not just, and I'm going to point this out, it's very important, Jay and Jordan, it's not just these 30 terrible people, these members of Congress who are using terrorist lies to attack Israel, but it's the fact that the party isn't denouncing them. The party is not, somehow okay with that.
That is a trouble when you think about that for a moment, that you got the Democratic Party just sitting silent. Now, you got to understand this, folks, and if you're supporting the work of the ACLJ, let me tell you what you do. We've got an office in Jerusalem. I don't just mean an office in Jerusalem. I mean in the heart of Jerusalem. And we work at the highest levels. We've represented Israel's interests at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Jeff is there half the year, more than that, actually, meeting with government leaders on a whole host of issues. But one of the things that we're concerned about is they've demonized these, what they call territories. Okay, Judea and Samaria. If those of you that follow the Bible, this is the land of Israel's ancient boundaries. Okay, if you want to get into a real estate dispute, the Israelis win. Okay, we win, they lose. But putting that aside, the idea that demonization of the people groups, and of course we know what goes on at the UN. But then, Jeff, in the UN we kind of say, well, it's the UN. What do we expect? Now we fight at the UN. By the way, we're not afraid to show up to places that are hostile. We're going to be developing another office of ours that's going to do nothing but that, with a major announcement next year. I mean, big. But you've got to go into these places that are hostile. And the UN, Jeff, and you've been in it in New York, of course, it is unbelievably hostile, but we have to be there to fight back.
No, it's absolutely necessary. And as you just say, Jay, I spend most of my time now in our Jerusalem office, and the Israelis are baffled. These are obvious bad actors. These are obvious terror organizations. These are organizations that are blowing up Americans, that are killing Americans. And yet, one of the two major parties claims still to be pro-Israel, but in practice keeps on supporting the terrorists, keeps on supporting the ones that are calling nonstop for the absolute destruction, the eradication of the state of Israel.
Jeff, I want to change topics with you for a moment here, and that is because you did many, many years. You've worked on Capitol Hill. You worked for senators. You've worked with us on Capitol Hill. As you know, we've taken this new initiative, our ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, and we've got two whistleblowers we're representing, both FBI. We are interviewing and investigating right now a third case. We're working with Empower Oversight. These are folks that came out of Senator Grassley's office. This is a big project for us, and our donors are the reason we're allowed to do it. These whistleblowers are heroes. Both of them, by the way, military veterans, decorated military veterans, and they're being treated by their government horribly, and that's why we're demanding justice. But these whistleblowers are speaking out because, Jeff, if they don't speak out, we don't know what's going on in there.
No, Jay, first of all, you know this. I came to work with ACLJ officially after working with you unofficially for many years and working together. And I'm always proud of the work ACLJ does. This is an example, makes me so incredibly proud that ACLJ is taking the lead on empowering them. And I heard what they were saying, that originally they were afraid and now they're being empowered to go forward, because what's happening, the corruption, the perversion of our government is the weaponization of the government against its citizens, against these unbelievable heroes. That is a crisis of our democracy. It's an existential crisis for us. And so therefore, ACLJ taking the lead publicly in doing this and letting the whistleblowers come forward is possibly the most important thing anyone could do at this moment in our history.
Jeff, we appreciate your insight. Welcome back to the United States for a couple of weeks. Folks, we've got an office in Jerusalem, and your support of that makes this possible. We've also done this. We've opened up our phone lines at 800-684-3110. We got folks on the line. Hang there. We're going to get to you in the next segment. 1-800-684-3110. Do you want us focusing on and defending these whistleblowers? 1-800-684-3110. Do you want us to fight and point out to you the injustice that's going on in the special counsel's office? Then you need to call us and tell us about that. 1-800-684-3110. Just days ago, last week, we launched our ACLJ, our new ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. And thanks to you, the kickoff has already been a great success. We had an unbelievable week last week. Your donations allowed us to take on a major new case. We talked about that with FBI Special Agent Karen O'Boyle, who testified before Congress on the FBI's secret targeting of pro-life Americans. His life's been torn apart because of all this, and you're allowing us to get him justice. And now your financial support has allowed us to defend yet another brave whistleblower, FBI Staff Operations Specialist Marcus Allen. Agent Allen's been labeled, quote, disloyal to the United States. He's, by the way, a military veteran, for testifying against political corruption in the FBI. The case is unfolding in real time. We've got an inspector general involved in it. I expect a good result there. We expect to have a major update on this case later in the week. But let me say this. Your donations are in action. You're seeing that. These are your donations, your support in action. You're doing this with us. So through our Life and Liberty Drive, you're making these fights possible, and we're getting dramatic results. And as I said, about to take on a third case. We've heard you. We've read your comments. I read those comments on the radio broadcast every day, and we know at this time what you feel most important. We also know some of you feel powerless, and we want you to understand we're taking action. We're not powerless, folks. We're getting results, and that's where you come in. Support the work right now. There's a lot of you listening around the country, tens of thousands of you, millions of you listening around the country, tens of thousands of you watching on social media. Go to aclj.org right now and support our Life and Liberty Drive. Your gifts are doubled. But we're giving you the examples of where your support directly impacts our ability to do these cases. aclj.org. Next segment, we're taking your calls at 800-684-3110.
The indictment was released against President Trump.
A federal grand jury has now criminally indicted the former president out of the special counsel's investigation.
This indictment specifically focused in on the actions leading up to January 6th and on January 6th. This indictment is about criminalizing speech.
He's now been accused criminally of violating the laws based on his thoughts and beliefs. To me, this is the most serious challenge to political speech I have seen, certainly in our lifetime.
As a person who is a Democrat, who's always voted Democrat, I am as appalled as any Republican or conservative can be about this misuse of the law and this weaponization of our criminal justice system.
The problem is this is in the District of Columbia, and that jury is going to be hostile.
This is yet another example of how far President Joe Biden's politicized Department of Justice is willing to go to try to destroy his main political opponent.
There is a two-tier justice system, and it's the weaponization of these agencies. When we talk about life and liberty being at stake, you have an indictment that comes down against the former president of the United States, which criminalizes free speech.
You've spoken and we've heard you loud and clear. We're proud to announce our brand new ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. Our legal teams will be focusing on the issues that you, our ACLJ members, have told us matter the most to you. We're redoubling our efforts to beat back the radical left's attack on your constitutional religious freedoms. This is your moment to get in the fight. Every tax-deductible gift will be doubled. Join the ACLJ in the fight to keep America free.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the broadcast. We are taking your calls at 800-684-3110, and we're also taking your comments that are coming in by Facebook and Twitter. I want to go to those, a couple of those first. We got a comment coming in by Rumble. This is very interesting. The most disturbing part of this attack on these whistleblowers who are faithful Americans following the Constitution is the mainstream media will not report any of this and downplays or dismisses what's really happening. They wouldn't even call them whistleblowers. They called them employer complaints. You know, when it's their people that are whistleblowers, they make sure those protections are applied. But the left, when it's a conservative, it can't possibly be. Except one of the whistleblowers was a Democrat. He said it. I'm a Democrat. And he still got challenged. But, you know, here's the thing, Jordan. We are fighting back. We're working with Empower Oversight. They do a great job. But I think it's important for people to point out here why we're standing with these individuals.
This is all about liberty. I mean, the idea is the executive branch cannot work without checks and balances. And one of the biggest checks and balances on the executive branch, yes, you have Congress and the power of the purse, you have the president, which directs the executive branch, but the bureaucracy has gotten so large, and we all know that there's got to be an ability for good actors inside these agencies to come to Congress, which has the power of the purse and the ability to give whistleblower protection. They've got to have the ability to do that. And they have to have the ability to do that and not end up like the situation of Garrett O'Boyle or Marcus Allen, where everything is being taken away from you, you're being suspended, you're not making your pay, you're having to pull out of retirement funds. That should never be the case. We have a whistleblower program in America so that those individuals, once that status is invoked, cannot be retaliated against by the federal government.
Exactly right. All right, I'm going to the phones. We're taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110. That's 800-684-3110. Whitney is calling from Texas. Whitney, welcome to the broadcast. You're on the air.
Thanks so much. I've got a legal question, and you guys are the ones to answer it. So not being a lawyer, when I hear novel legal theory, what I think I hear is someone who's misconstruing the law by asserting novel assumptions and definitions. And within those asserted assumptions and definitions, his argument might make sense and might even be defendable, except that those assumptions and definitions are completely outside the context of conventional law. Is that correct?
You're Whitney. It's a great answer. Let me tell you, this is going way back. You're exactly correct. I mean, novel doesn't mean illegal, but novel means untested. Or I will never forget this. I took in law school, you take in your first semester, you take criminal law and criminal procedure. And we had this exam. The professor was John Cole, and who was the dean of law school at the time. And in the exam, there was a question presented, and I wrote my answer out to this question, and then we all went out they had a really good snack bar or a little hamburger place at the law school where we all ate, and I'm talking to my fellow students, and nobody put the answer I put. No one had that answer. And it was, I said, oh boy, I got that one wrong. And when we got the exam back at the end of the next semester, I got an A+, which was unheard of. At Mercer, 99. You can't get a 100 because the rule at Mercer was no one's perfect. No lawyer's perfect. It was 99, but the professor wrote on my exam on that question, very novel approach. Now, very novel approach are fine for exams, and they're great for law review articles. Let me tell you where they're not so great. They're not so great when you're indicting a former president who is the leading Republican candidate for president right now. Is not the time for novel, Jordan, and that's the problem here.
No, I mean, we hear it time and time again. I think Judge Cannon has just pointed that out again today. We are now seeing that even inside the grand jury process where they are adding charges, they've already done that in Florida to a number of times since the first filing of the indictments and the first arraignment. There have been additional charges added. Then you look at D.C., and you got to wonder, is the same issue going to arise there with all of these unnamed co-conspirators, which usually you would kind of combine those into a case if those were all really related and you were building a conspiracy case, which Jack Smith appears to be doing, except he's building a conspiracy case with a bunch of unknown conspirators. And I know people are speculating on who this conspirator is, and conspirator 2 and 3 and 4, but the ultimate idea here is this. Hunter Biden gets a slap on the wrist. He'll ultimately get his plea deal signed. Donald Trump is not through with just being arraigned. He is going to at least go through one more time where we're going to see the plane take off from Newark, and it's going to land, I guess, in Atlanta, and he's going to go to the Fulton County Jail, and then he's going to have to be arraigned there as well, and we expect that to happen very soon from DA Fani Willis.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a comment coming in. Wendy on Rumble said Jack Smith's team is acting like mobsters. I'll tell you what they're doing. What they're doing is trying to hit from so many sides at one time that it overwhelms the former president's ability to run for office, but also to defend himself. Because let's take a look at what you have. You've got a criminal investigation in New York that is now an indicted case, and there's a civil trial in New York, a civil fraud trial in New York going on by the New York Attorney General. That's in one case. You've got the Mar-a-Lago case that's already been indicted on the documents. You now got the January 6th indictment, which raises serious First Amendment issues out of Washington, D.C. And as Jordan said, it looks like we're going to see an indictment out of Atlanta later this week or next. The streets are already closed off in Atlanta. You ask yourself all of this. Does it look like a pile-on? And then you got the FBI, going after whistleblowers? So here's the problem. When you go in and you have change agents in government or change agents as lawyers, you're going to get pushback. And the pushback's going to be aggressive. And that's exactly what you're seeing take place here. There are a lot of you watching us right now or listening to us on radio or Sirius XM. And when I say a lot, I mean numbers we haven't seen in a long time. And I want to encourage you to do something right now. If you're watching on any of our social media applications, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, whatever it might be, Twitter, make sure you're subscribing to this feed. We're almost 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're 2,000 away from getting 3,000. Hit that subscribe button now. For those of you that are watching, there's probably thousands of you watching right now that have never subscribed to this. We encourage you to do it. This broadcast is 5 days a week. We're able to fight back to do this broadcast, and like I said, you don't see the entire team that's involved here. We got 6 people in our command in the production room right now putting this together. Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to play this bite from our latest client, Marcus Allen, who is also an FBI whistleblower, because I think as we close out the broadcast day, it's so important about why you need to be part of our Life and Liberty Drive. Listen to bite 6.
I have never had the opportunity to defend myself. I only had one interview with the FBI, which occurred a year ago after apparent prompting from Congress. In that interview, the investigators, towards the end of the interview, uttered in response to my exasperation, "Don't sue us." This has been a trying circumstance for me and my family. It has been more than a year since the FBI took my paycheck from me, and we're getting financially crushed.
Financially crushed.
Yeah, don't sue us, they said.
I want people to understand that because the ACLJ is standing with Marcus Allen, Garrett O'Boyle, and likely other whistleblowers, they are going to get the legal representation that there's no way they could afford. I mean, they're being financially crushed just on their basics right now, to go in and fight for them so that that this situation is rectified in a positive way, whether it's getting their clearances back, whether in some cases getting their jobs back, or just enough of their career back so that they can choose a different career path and start providing for their families again.
Exactly right.
And our ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive is that's the point, is to get these people back up on their feet.
ACLJ.org. It's our Life and Liberty Drive. This is your chance. You're giving us the fuel for these fights. And again, we can't protect our constitutional republic without you. So get in that fight. ACLJ.org.